All right, so you should be located on Carmona, page 157 in your review book. Let's go ahead and get started. Number one, at a restaurant, jars of tomato sauce are stored in boxes in the pantry. Each box contains 8 jars of tomato sauce. The cook uses 2 jars from one of the boxes. Which function shows the relationship between y, the total number of jars of tomato sauce remaining in the pantry, and x, the number of boxes in the pantry? So, here they told us that y is the total number of jars of tomato sauce and x is the number of boxes. They also told us each box has 8 jars of tomato sauce. And the cook used 2 of them. So my only possible equation is going to look like that. And I see that answer choice C matches. Let's take a look at number 2. Here they're asking me to tell them which one of these is exactly the same. If they are exactly the same in my calculator, I could either do a test and I would get a true if they are, or I can graph them and make sure that they match exactly. So I'll go ahead and look at this, and I see that it's negative 28x squared. So I know for sure I want to take out that negative, and I'm trying to think if anything is in common in between 28 and 35. It looks like a 7. Now I divide everything in here by negative 7. I open a parentheses. Oh, actually, there's also an x we can pull out. X minus 5. All right. So now I look at my answer choices, and I do see that answer choice G is going to be the closest to what I got. I want to verify this using my calculator. So if I wanted to use the test function, I would go to a brand new calculator page, assign a random value to x, always starting with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I would type in the 2 separate expressions. I would put an equal sign in between them. And then I would type in the answer that I got. So for these, I forgot that I do have to type in multiplication in between each one. So let me go ahead and do that. And I got a true. That tells me that these guys are exactly the same. On the other hand, I could also head over here to my graph, and I'll call this one F1. This will be my original equation. It should look like that. And I can go ahead and type in answer choice G. I'll call that G1. Let me type that over. Negative 7x multiplied by 4x minus 5. That is odd. There we go. We had to put in the extra multiplication. As you can see, these two lay exactly on top of each other, so that is most certainly my correct answer. Number 3. Which graph represents a system of equations that has no solution? So remembering whenever we're dealing with this, no solution, we have three different categories of answers for our systems of equations. We have one solution, we have infinite solutions, and we have 0 solutions. These guys cross over. These guys are exactly the same, and these guys are going to be parallel. Consistent independent, consistent dependent, inconsistent. So I'm looking at these and I see one solution. Eventually these guys will have one solution as well. But over here, these guys will continue on forever and ever, and they will never touch. This is the only one with no solution. Number 4. Which statement about the graph of y equals 8 times 0.25 to the power of x is true? The coordinates of the x-intercept, meaning when y is equal to 0, are 0.25 comma 0. Well, we can verify that on our graph. The coordinates of the y-intercept are 0 comma 8. That's true. And we know that for a fact because whenever we look at this formula, this is always my initial value, my y-intercept. And this guy is how much I change it by my change. The equation of the asymptote is x equals 0. Well, that's a vertical asymptote. We don't use those in Algebra 1. And the graph includes a 0.2 comma 1. Well, let's go ahead and just graph this and see what happens. So I'll start a new graph. I'll call this F4. 8 multiplied by 0.25 all to the power of x. Okay, and it looks like it's getting really close over here to y equals 0. That would be this line that follows the y-axis. So that tells me h is incorrect. This is my asymptote. The graph contains 2 comma 1. Let me go ahead and look at the table. I'm going to look 2 comma 0.5. That does not exist on my graph, so I can cross off this guy. Next one, the coordinates of the x-intercept are 0.25 comma 0. Well, guess what? We will never have an x-intercept. It will never touch y equals 0. Noticing this number is just getting super small. It's never going to touch it. That's what the asymptote tells us. It won't touch the x-axis. So, my correct answer has got to be G. Number 5. What is the range of this function? Well, first of all, I see the word range, and that automatically tells me that I can only use the answer choices with a y. Now, I'm not really sure, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to graph this. I'm going to start a new graph. I'm going to call this F5, negative x to the power of 2 minus 2x plus 3. And it looks like it goes all the way up to what appears to be 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 4. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run a graph trace. There's my maximum. My maximum is located at a y value of 4. So all of my y values are less than or equal to positive 4. So I see that answer choice C matches. All right, next one. Which expression is equivalent to this for all positive values of k and r? So anytime I see something on the outside of the parentheses, we do our fake distribution. So I'll go ahead and do that. So 144 to the power of 1/2 times k times r to the power of 7. Because I'm multiplying them together. It's like fake distribution. This is interesting. So I'll just go ahead and type that in the calculator. If you remember the rule, that would actually become the square root of 144, but I'm going to go ahead and type it in anyways. Whoops. Delete 2. And look at that. It is 12. So 12k r to the power of 7. Now, I look at my answer choices, and I see the answer choice F matches. However, I just want to be 100% certain with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and store 2 as my k and 3 as my r. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in the 2 original equations. Now, remember the other way to do this would have been for us just to actually replace the letters with the number. That is perfectly acceptable to do. However, I just do it this way because it's a little bit easier to make sure that I'm typing it in correctly. So I'll go ahead and hit enter, and it says true. F is most certainly the correct answer. Number 7. The graph shows the height in feet of an object above the ground t seconds after it was launched from the ground. Which function best represents the graph of this situation? Of course, this is totally a regression. So I'll look to see, I'll find just a handful of points. I see here there's one located at 2,64. I see another one located here at 3,48. And over here at 1,48. I only need approximately 3 values. So I'll go ahead and I'll start a new spreadsheet. These will be my x's from number 7, my y's from number 7. And I'll go ahead and type in those values. Now I'll go ahead and run my regression, remembering that all regressions are exactly the same on our calculator. This is the only different step. So I'll go ahead and select my x's, my y's. I'm going to name it F7 just in case I need it later. And there is my equation. Now, this right here is a 0. Okay, this is really close to 0 because that negative tells me this is a really small decimal. So it should be somewhere along the lines of h of t equals negative 16 t squared plus 64 t. I go back and I look at my answer choices. And I see here that answer choice C is the only one that matches. These guys changed up too many things that did not line up properly. Number 8. Which value of n makes the equation true? So for this one, I could totally do an n solve, but I'll go ahead and I'll solve this one by hand first. I'm going to go ahead and distribute into there. Distribute over here. Now I'll go ahead and start combining like terms. Now I'll go ahead and move whichever one of my n's is smaller. Now I'll go ahead and move my 3 over. And I find an answer of n equals negative 9. I just want to verify this with my calculator. So I'll head back over here to my calculator page. I'm going to go ahead and go to Algebra, Numerical Solve. I'm going to type in my equation exactly as I see it. Always, I have to put a comma in. My calculator's not smart enough to know what it's looking for, so I have to tell it. And look at that, I got exactly the same answer. So, answer choice G is most certainly the correct answer. All right, number 9. In a sequence of numbers, A3 is equal to 0, A4 is equal to 6, A5 is equal to 12, A6 is equal to 18, and so on. Based on this information, which equation could be used to find the nth term in the sequence? Well, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to make a table of values and just run a regression, remembering that my place in these, whether they be arithmetic or geometric, is always going to be x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 0, 6, 12, 18, 24. I look at my equations that they gave me as answer choices. They are all linear. I don't see any squares, square roots, exponents, anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop this table in there, and I'm going to run my regression. I could also have just done this the hand way by using point slope form. Okay, so actually let's go ahead and do that really quickly. So I'll choose my 2 simplest points. I'll go ahead and say 6 minus 0 all divided by 4 minus 3, 6 over 1. My slope is 6. Y minus 0 equals 6 times x minus 3. Y equals 6x minus 18. And it looks like answer choice C should be the correct answer. But let's just verify that. So I'll go ahead and run my regression. I'm going to say x's from number 9, y's from number 9, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 3 is 0, 6, 12, 18, 24. Now I will go ahead and run my linear regression using y equals mx plus b. I do not want to use the one with the a. I'm going to go ahead and rename my function just in case I need it later. And here it is, exactly the same. Y equals 6x minus 18. Exactly what we predicted. My answer is most certainly answer choice C. All right. The value of y varies directly with x. As soon as I hear that, this is what I think. That I can set up any problem to solve for them, or I can calculate the constant of variation. So they said x is equal to 3, y is equal to 21. What happens whenever y is equal to 105? 2x. Now, of course, I could go ahead and cross multiply and solve this. So let's go ahead and do that. 21x equals 315. I'm going to go ahead and divide this by 21 on both sides. And I'm going to get, let's see what that is, 15. So my x value is going to be 15. That should be answer choice J. I can also place this into an NSolve to get the same exact answer. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. Numerical solve. So 21 over 3 is equal to 105 over x. And we're looking for x. And look at that. Same exact number, 15. Number 11. Which expression is equivalent? So for this particular one, they're asking us to basically factor. Of course, the answer choices should all be exactly the same graph as the original one up here. I can also run a test. So I can do a graph match or a test. So I'm going to go ahead and work this out by hand. 1 times negative 60. I'm looking for two numbers that when added together will give me negative 17. That tells me that there is one negative, one positive. So I'll start from the beginning. Negative 1, positive 60. That would give me a positive number. I'm looking for negatives. So for my next one, I'll do 2, negative 30. Okay, we're getting closer. 3, negative 20. Look at that. There are my numbers. Now I can go ahead and break apart my B term. I'm going to factor from just the first set. Factor from just the second set. I'm going to verify the insides are the same. And then I'm going to combine like terms. I look, and only one answer choice matches that. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to verify this. So here, I can go ahead and just store any value for x. Like I said, I prefer 2. Now I can go ahead and type in my original equation. Equals my answer choice. And it gave me a true. That tells me that this is exactly the same. I could have also went ahead and graphed these. So I'll name this F11, x to the power of 2 minus 17x minus 60. It should look something like that. And we know this is not the end of the story for this graph. But as long as it lines up, we are totally okay. Answer choice A from number 11 is going to be x minus 20 multiplied by x plus 3. And look at that, it lays exactly on top of there. So this is most certainly 100% the correct answer. So, number 12. A zookeeper recorded the feeding schedule for a baby rhinoceros for 20 weeks. The table and scatter plots show the percentage of the baby rhinoceros's body mass that was used to determine the amount of food given and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Which is the best prediction of the percentage of the baby rhinoceros body mass that should be used to determine the amount of food given each feeding when it is 25 weeks old? Okay. So, here essentially they're asking me to run a regression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in all of those values. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to start a new spreadsheet. X is from number 12. Y is from number 12. And I'm going to go ahead and type those in. 1, 2, 4, 7, 9, 12, 14, 15, 17, 20. Now remember, because this is not a perfect graph, we always have to type in all of the values. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and run a regression. I look at this and I say, okay, that's approximately a line. So I'm comfortable going ahead and running my y equals mx plus b. So I'll go ahead and select my x's and my y's. I'm going to name this F12. And I'm going to click OK. So here it gave me this really crazy equation, right? But I named it F12. I need to find F25. I could totally go ahead and take a look at the graph of this. So I can go here. I'll scroll down until I see F12. And I'll go ahead and look at the table. And it'll tell me at x equals 25, it's approximately 6.18%. However, the easier way for me to have done this would have been to head over to my calculator page, F12, plug in my 25, and there's my answer. I could have also have taken this equation and manually plugged in 25. So my correct answer is approximately 6%, and I see that answer choice G is the closest. So I ran a regression, and then I called it up in the calculator screen. All right, next one. What are the domain and range of this equation? So, first thing, let me go ahead and just graph this. Let me see what happens here. So I'll go ahead and graph this as F13. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at the table. Okay, so it looks like the y value never changes, but the x values just go through all the numbers. So that means that my range is only equal to -37. And my domain is all real numbers. But let me go ahead and close out my table. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'll do a zoom fit. Let's see how that works out. Not very well. We'll try it again. Let's do a zoom out. Oh, where did my graph go? All right. Okay. I'm not sure why it's not showing it. That is very odd. But, however, it will be a flat line laying straight down. And it will cover every single x value, telling us all real numbers. And the y values will only be equal to -37. So I'm looking, and it looks like answer choice D is the only one that would work out. Number 14. The graph of the quadratic function p is shown on the grid. If k equals this equation and p is equal to that, what is the value of n? So here they told me that this guy here is just this equation plus something. So what I can actually do is I'll just cheat a little bit. I'll go ahead and take all these points here, and I'll run a regression. Let's find out what this guy's equation is. So I'll head over here, These are my x's from number 14, my y's from number 14. Negative 3, 0, positive 3. Over here, 3, negative 6. Whoops. 3. Let's go ahead and run that regression. And we'll do a quadratic because that is a parabola. I'm looking for the x's from number 14, my y's from number 14, and I'm going to rename this F14. There is my equation. Interesting. So I'm going to write that down. P of x equals x squared minus 6 versus k of x is equal to x squared. So it looks like the only thing that changed was this minus 6. That means that n has got to be equal to negative 6. There's my answer. 15. Two customers went to the post office to buy postcards in large envelopes. Each postcard cost the same amount. Each large envelope cost the same amount. The first customer paid $12 for 14 postcards and 5 large envelopes. The second customer paid $24.80 for 10 postcards and 15 large envelopes. Now, of course, I could go ahead and run some manual work, and I could do an elimination here. So I see that this is 15 and positive 5. I'll multiply this guy by negative 3. Now I'll go ahead and add them together. Here they would cancel out. Negative 32p equals, let's see here, $11.20, but negative. And now I can go ahead and divide both sides by negative 32. And I'll go ahead and type that into my calculator. So each postcard costs approximately 35 cents. And that tells me now that I need to go back because they want to know the cost of the envelope. So I'm going to pick the one that's the easiest looking. I'll pick that first one, plug this guy back in. So 12 equals 14 times 0.35 plus 5e. So 12 equals 490 plus 5e. I'm going to take away my 490 from 12. From both sides. Now I'll go ahead and do my division in order to get e by itself. And I find out that each envelope is approximately $1.42. Lots of work. We could have totally just ran a lin solve. So I'll do that now. Go to Algebra, solve system of linear equations. I'm going to go ahead and use P and E. You could continue to use X and Y if you so choose. And I'm going to type in my equations exactly as I had them before. And here I got the exact same answers. Each envelope is 35 cents. Each postcard is 35 cents. Each envelope is $1.42. We got this one correct. Number 16. The water level of a river was measured each day during a 2-week period. The graph models the linear relationship between the water level of the river in feet and the number of days the water level was measured. Which statement best describes the y-intercept of the graph? So, here they're asking me about my y-intercept. This guy right here. So, when they very first started to measure, it was at 16 feet. So, let's see. The initial water level was at 16 feet. The maximum water level, that has nothing to do with my y-intercept. The water level increase, that has nothing to do with my y-intercept. That sounds like a slope kind of thing. The water level was measured for 14 days. That is not what my y-intercept tells me. The only logical answer is answer choice H. Number 17. There are 1,024 players in a tennis tournament. In each round, half the players are eliminated. Which function can be used to find the number of players remaining in the tournament at the end of X rounds? So, of course, we have this equation. This is where we start. And this is our rate of decay or growth. And it said that it started with 1,024 players, and every round they cut it in half. So my equation should look something like this. I analyze each answer. The only one that's logical for this is answer choice B. Number 18. Which statement about g of x equals x squared minus 576 is true? So, pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the graph, which we can do. Or we can actually go ahead and run a polyroot. Remembering, almost everything is underneath that algebra menu. So I typed in my equation, and it's going to give me these two values. These are my x-intercepts. So I'll go back. I'm going to go ahead and call this F18, and I just want to type it in here as well, just to make sure that we have a real good understanding of this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom out a little. Well, actually, I think I can do a graph trace, and it'll take me there. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here. I'm going to look for that x-intercept. Where did that guy go? I'm going to keep going and going and going and going. So I'm looking for where y is equal to 0. There is my x-intercept at negative 24. Exactly what we found using polyroot. So I'll go over here. Just want to verify that my other x-intercept is located at positive 24. So let's see. We're going to keep going, 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 going. This graph is gigantic. All right, there it is. Located at positive 24. So what does that tell me? That tells me that my zeros are located at negative 24, positive 24. There's not only one 0. That's correct. That's incorrect. That is incorrect. And if I take this and verify that these are exactly the same, or if I decided to factor, that would also tell me. Now, this is the difference of perfect squares. So the square root of 576 is most certainly 24. But I'm going to graph these just to verify. So I'm going to go ahead and hit tab. And I'm going to call this answer choice H for number 18. And that was x plus 24 times x minus 24. And look at that. It lays directly on top of it. So I'll go ahead and I'll zoom out a little bit just so we can get a better view of this. Oh, a little bit too fast there. So as you can see, they lay directly on top of each other, meaning they are exactly the same. So answer choice H is most certainly my correct answer. Next one. Which graph best represents the solution set of this? So first thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and rearrange this to make it into a y equals mx plus b. Now, I want to go ahead and I want to move this 6y. And every time I make a move, I ask myself, did you multiply or divide by a negative number? I did not. My sign is going to stay the same. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start trying to isolate that y. Again, I ask myself, hey, did you multiply or divide by a negative number? I did not. My symbol is facing the same direction. Now I'll go ahead and divide everybody I see by negative 6. I did multiply by a negative number, multiply or divide by a negative number on both sides. So I'll go ahead and flip my symbol around. And I end up with this as my equation. If I wanted to verify that these are the same, I can do that with a ln solve. but I can't use the inequality. State of Texas says that I cannot. But I can verify that these equations are the same with a LinSolve. So I'll type them in with equals instead of the inequality symbols. If they are exactly the same, I should see a C in my answer selection. And look at that, I found a C. So that is exactly correct. All right, so now I can go ahead and look at the graphs. They should be touching at positive 9. I see that every single one of these graphs is touching at positive 9. Now I go ahead and I look at my inequality symbol. I see that this should be a solid line, so I can automatically eliminate those guys. Now I need to make sure that it has the correct slope. It should be negative 2/3. So I should be able to go down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3. Whoops. So down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3. So that matches, and it is shaded above. And over here, down 2, and that does not work out. So it's answer choice A. I could have also differentiated because up here it says y bigger than. I'm shading up. This guy's shading down, so A is certainly correct. Next one. Given f of x is equal to this equation, find the value of f of 16. This is telling me x is equal to 16. Please plug it in. Sure, f of 16 equals 1/3 times 4 minus 16 squared. I can go ahead and simplify this. And I'll find out that f of 16 is equal to 48. However, I want to verify this using my calculator. I could go ahead and graph it and look at the table, or I can store this by saying, first my equation, 1/3 multiplied by 4 minus x, all to the power of 2, and I'm going to store that as f20 of x. I've stored it now. Now I'll go ahead and call it back up and plug in the value of x equals 16, and look at that, exactly the same answer. Number 21. Which of these represents the rate of change of the maximum area painted with respect to the number of gallons of paint used? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick 2 points that go exactly through the corners of the boxes. I have to be very careful. Notice that they scaled it differently here. Each box on the y side is equal to positive 200, and each box on the x side is equal to 0.5 gallons. So I'm going to go up 200 over 1/2. If I simplify that, I get 400. Answer choice C. I could have also ran a linear regression and gotten the exact same answer. Number 22. What are the solutions to this? So for this one, what I could do is I could rearrange it, make it all equal to 0, and graph it. I could also solve this using square roots. So square root, over here, this turns into that. The square root of 81 is 9, but there is a negative and a positive answer. Now I can go ahead and isolate my x, and I split them apart. Negative 7 plus 9, positive 2. Negative 7 minus 9, negative 16. My answer is clearly J. If I wanted to graph this because I was unsure of how to solve this, anytime you were solving something and you're going to use a graph to solve it, you always have got to make it equal to 0. So the way that I would go about doing that is I would move this 81 over. And now I can go ahead and graph it. So I'll do that now. Head over here, and we'll call this F22. X plus 7 to the power of 2 minus 81. Okay, so now we have that. I'm going to go ahead and do a graph trace, and I'm going to look for those zeros. So here's one located at positive 2. And we also predicted the other one would be at negative 16. So let's just verify that. And there it is at negative 16. So we got this one correct. J is most certainly my correct answer. Number 23. What appears to be the domain of the part of the exponential function graphed in the grid? So anytime I'm dealing with domain, I'm only dealing with my x's. I will never, ever, ever deal with my y's. Now I can go ahead and just ascertain how far it is going in each direction. So here and here. I'm looking how far left, how far right. I'm going to go ahead and set up my baseline part of my domain. I drop in my -1. I see my dot is filled in, an extra line. I drop in my +3. It's also filled in, drop in my extra line. The only logical answer is answer choice A. Number 24. The table of ordered pairs represents some points on the graphs of lines Q and V. Which systems of equations is represented by Q and V? Now this is kind of a long, convoluted problem. Of course, I could totally do this by hand. I can also run 2 regressions and try and match them up. Okay, so for line Q, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, I'm going to look at the easiest points. I'll pick these guys. So 18 minus 0 over -3 minus -9. I'll go ahead and begin to simplify. My slope is 3. Now I will go ahead and I will write in point slope form. I see a double negative. I'll change it to a positive. And here I have an equation, y equals 3x plus 27. I'll verify that with a regression. So I'll call these my x's from Q number 24, my x's from y. My y's from Q number 24. Okay, now I will go ahead and I will run a linear regression. And look at that, exactly what I got here. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this to standard form. I'm going to move this 3x over. And I don't like that it has that negative. So I'm going to divide everybody I see by -1. Now I have something in standard form. If I wanted to verify that these two guys are exactly the same, all I have to do is run a lin solve. If I get a C in my answer, that tells me that I did it correct. It also means that they are exactly the same line with infinite number of solutions that they're asking about a system of equations. So I'll go ahead and type in my original equation and my second equation. And look at that, I got a C, so those are definitely the same. Let's take a look at that second one. I'll go ahead and pick just the positive values. 8 minus 3 over 0 minus 10. 5 over -10. -1/2. Now I'll go ahead and I'll plug in this guy into my point slope form. So y minus 8 equals -1/2 into x minus 0. I'll start simplifying. And all I need to do is, let's go ahead and move over that y. Noticing that you don't always have to move it in the same direction. Do what works for you. I see here that my x has a fraction and a negative number in front of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply everything I see by -2 in order to get rid of that fraction, as well as the negative. And I see here that I finally arrived at a standard form equation. If I needed to verify, I could go ahead and run a linsolve on these two to verify they are the same. Now I'm going to go ahead and look over here, and I see 3x minus y equals -27. X plus 2y equals 16. Answer choice G has got to be the correct answer. 25. Which situation does not show causation? Causation means that it has only one direct cause. So when the student population at the school increases, the number of teachers at the school increases. I'm trying to think if there's any other reason why the number of teachers would increase. Who knows? Maybe they want smaller classes. Maybe some extra teachers got moved there by the district. There's lots of other things that could happen. So I would say this is probably an association. When the amount of sugar in a quart of apple juice is reduced, there are fewer calories in each serving. So if I think about that, there's not really anything else that could affect that. Apple juice is all sugar and water, plus a couple of other pieces of flavor. That's more than likely causation. When there are more workers on a project, the project is completed in less time. Well, yeah, that's probably true, but that doesn't always mean that the project is completed in less time just simply because of that. There could have been more skilled people. They could have gotten better equipment. They could have already had somebody else start before them. So I'd call this an association. When there's more protein in an athlete's diet, the athlete scores more points in a game. So that's not true in every case. They could also score more points because they got healthier, they lost weight, they trained a lot, they exercised more. So that's an association. Answer choice B is the only logical answer. Next one. Which function is equivalent to f of x equals this equation? So they're asking me to go ahead and multiply this out. So I'll do that. First thing I need to do is this squared part. Do not distribute that -4 first. I've got to handle the exponent first. So x plus 7, x plus 7. Now I can go ahead and continue to simplify. And it looks like answer choice F is going to be the closest one. I could go ahead and verify this with a graph match or a test and call up. So I've already stored 2 as x, but I'll repeat that process again. Now I'll go ahead and type in my original equation, -4 multiplied by x plus 7, all to the power of 2 minus 6. And I need to know, is that equal to -4 times x to the power of 2 minus 56 times x minus 202. Yes, that is most certainly true. Now, I could have also have went ahead and just graphed this guy. And my graph should look something like that. I can go ahead and graph my answer choice. I'll call this answer F, number 26. And I'll go ahead and copy it. 26. And look at that, it lays directly on top of it. That tells me number 26 is most certainly F. Number 27. A paper airplane was thrown from the top of a tall building. The height of the paper airplane above the ground can be found using this equation. X is the time in seconds the plane has been in the air. How many seconds did it take the paper plane to reach the ground? So, first of all, I have some kind of building, right? I don't know how tall it is. And it's going to reach the ground at some amount of time. It reaches the ground at y equals 0. That's when it's going to stop and hit the ground. So I can replace that in that equation. 0 equals negative 1.5x plus 60. And I can go ahead and solve this by hand. Okay, and I ended up with x equals 40. So, for this particular one, I could have also have just graphed it. I could have also done an NSolve. So I'll go ahead and look again. I'll graph this. I'll call this F27, negative 1.5, x plus 60. And I'll go ahead and look at my table. I'm trying to find a place where y is equal to 0. So I'll keep going, and look at that. It matches up where my y is equal to 0. So my correct answer is most certainly 40. 28. Which expression is equivalent to this? So first thing I need to do is let's go ahead and distribute q to the power of negative 12 over q to the power of negative 15. We don't like those negative exponents, so I'll go ahead and flip them over. Now I can go ahead and subtract, and there's my final answer. I want to verify this using my calculator. I'll go ahead and head back to the calculator screen, and I'm going to go ahead and store 2 as my q. Now I'll go ahead and type in the first one. I'll start by making my little fraction. So q to the power of 4, all to the power of negative 3, divided by q to the power of negative 15. Now, I did not mean to press enter. Now that I have my original one, I'll say, hey, calculator, is this equal to q to the power of 3? Yes, it is. I got it true, so 28 is correct. Which graph represents a quadratic function that has only one zero, meaning it only touches the x-axis one time? So here, 1, 2, that has 2 zeros. 1, 2, 2 zeros. 1 0, no zeros. My correct answer is B, number 30. What is the solution set for this? Now, I could do an NSolve in order to verify the number. It will not verify the symbol, okay? But let's go ahead and do this anyways. I'm going to go ahead and move this 5x over because I need my x to be on this side. I asked myself, did you multiply or divide by a negative number? I did not. I leave my symbol the same. Let's go ahead and perform an exciting move. I asked myself again, did you multiply or divide by a negative number? I did not. Now I'll go ahead and divide by my coefficient, my great divide. And I end up with this. I did multiply or divide by a negative number, so I end up with my answer choice, H. Now, I'm going to go ahead and run an NSolve just to verify my number. So, NSolve. And I'm going to type in my equation, but I'm going to replace it with an equal sign. And I ended up with negative 5, which matches and is consistent with my answer, number 31. Which expression is a factor of this? So here they're asking me to find the factors. Now, what I could do, I could go ahead and factor it, or I could go ahead and go through a polyroot. So I'm going to go ahead and go through, a polyroot. I'm going to go ahead and type in those numbers. And it's going to give me back the two answers. -4/3, 5/7. Of course, you guys already know how to factor this, but I'm showing you how to work this backwards. So for this one, I have these. Now I want to reset it and make them equal to 0. So I'll multiply both sides by -3 over here. Oh, wait, excuse me. Sorry, +3. Now I'll go ahead and take away my 4. It's equal to 0. There's my first factor. Now I can do the same over here. Multiply by 7. Move my 5 over. Now I have my second factor. Therefore, if I put this in my calculator to verify it, these two guys should be exactly the same. I could have also gotten this answer by factoring, but I'll go ahead and test this now. So I'll store my value of 2 for x, for my x, and I'll go ahead and type this in, 21x to the power of 2 plus 13x minus 20, and calculator, is that going to be equal to 3 times x minus 4 multiplied by 7 times x minus 5. Did I type something in wrong? 3x minus 4, 7x minus 5. I see where I made my mistake. Excuse me. I accidentally forgot this negative. So it should have been positive. So it's 3x plus 4. So let's try that one more time. I'll go ahead and paste that. This should be a positive. And now we have our correct answer. So most certainly it's going to be one of these two guys. And the only one that I see up there is answer choice B. Remembering also that if I graph this and this, they should have exactly the same graph. Number 32. What is the equation and slope of the line shown? So we have 4 different slopes. Positive, negative, 0, undefined. Here, I see that it's touching the x-axis at x equals 6. X is never not going to be equal to 6, and my slope is going to be undefined. The only correct answer is answer choice J. Number 33. In the year 1900, the total number of metric tons of copper produced in the world was 400,095. Each year since 1990, the total number of metric tons of copper produced has increased by an average of 3.25% over the amount produced the previous year. Which function models this? So we started off with 495,000, and we're going to increase by 3.25% each year. So I look, and only answer choice A matches this. We've never done this, so don't pick those. And this is decay. This would go down. All right, next one. Which is the solution to this equation? Well, let's go ahead and solve this one by hand first. And then, of course, we can totally do an n solve. 12 2x plus 27. Let's go ahead and move my 27 over. Now I'll go ahead and move that 34x. Now I'll go ahead and divide both sides by 8. And I end up with x equals 8.5. So I want to just verify this with an n solve. I'll head back over here. I'm already on the calculator page. I'll go to my NSolve and let's type in that original equation. I have to tell it I'm looking for x. Hold on, let's see. 3x. Oh, whoops. I typed that in incorrectly. Let's go ahead. 34x plus 95 equals, and we're all set. 8.5, exactly what we got earlier. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 35. Which function is best represented by the graph of g? So anytime I see these guys, I see here that f is up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And it started here at the origin. That tells me that it looks like this. Over here, on the other hand, it's up 1 over 3. My slope is equal to 1/3. Now, my graph of g of x would be equal to 1/3 x. If I look at this, this, and this are all the same. So g of x is also equal to 1/3 of f of x. Answer choice B. Number 36. Which expression is equivalent to this? So this is going to be the very super extended box method, okay? So here we go, h squared, 9h, minus 1, over here, negative 4h, positive 3. Okay, so negative 4h cubed, 3h squared, negative 36h squared, 27h, 4h, negative 3. And of course, my diagonals are going to be usually the ones that we are going to have to combine like terms with. Negative 4h cubed minus 33h squared plus 31h minus 3. So I look, and it looks like answer choice A is the closest. But I just want to verify this. Now, I could go ahead and graph this and verify they're the same. I could also just run a test. I'm going to do a test simply because it's a little bit easier and that graph might be a little bit crazy. So I'll go ahead and plug that in as h to the power of 2 plus 9 times h minus 1, all multiplied by negative 4 times h plus 3. And calculator, is that going to be equal to negative 4 times h to the power of 3 minus 33 h to the power of 2 plus 31 times h minus 3. And it certainly is. I could have also have graphed each of these and just make sure the graph matches. No matter how crazy the graph looks, as long as it matches, they're exactly the same. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. So here, we'll go ahead and call this F36. And I'm going to change these H's into X's. And it looks pretty crazy, right? Let's go ahead and type in that second graph. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this guy over here. I'm going to copy that. Let's head back over to my graphing page. I'm going to hit tab. I'm going to say this is answer choice F from number 36. Whoops, 36. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to change all these H's into an X. And look at that, it lays directly on top of it. That's most certainly my correct answer. Number 37. There are 15 plates in a kitchen cabinet. The diameter of each plate is either 7 inches or 12 inches. The diameter of all 15 plates combined is 140 inches. Which system of equations can be used to find the number of 7-inch plates and the number of 12-inch plates? So we have a total of 15 plates. So I'm looking. Whoops. And I can automatically cross off 2 of them. And of course, we have a total diameter of 140 inches. And that is 7 for the X's, 12 for the Y's. So my correct answer is C. Number 38. Here they're asking me about the domain. Because this is domain, I can only have certain answers. I cannot get a Y. So I look at this, and it looks like this graph is continuous, and it's going to head off in both directions forever and ever. Negative infinity, positive infinity. So that means all real numbers. Quadratic graphs usually have all real numbers as their domain. 39. What is the equation in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through that point and is perpendicular? Opposite reciprocals. Meaning, flip it and change your sign. So I'll take a look at my old slope. My new slope is going to be that one, flipped over, changing the sign. Now I have a slope and a point. Let's plug it in. I have my X, my Y, as well as my new slope. I'll go ahead and start to simplify. I'll go ahead and move that 2 over. And I ended up here. It looks like answer choice D is the only correct answer. If I already have this set up, I could verify with a LinSolve. If I had a C, these would be correct. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick over here on my calculator page. Let me go ahead and start a new LinSolve. I'm going to type in that original equation, y minus negative 2 equals negative 5/2 x. Whoops, 5/2 of x minus 2. And I'm comparing that to y equals negative 5/2 x plus 5. Hold on, did I type that in correct? Negative 5/2. Oh, whoops. I did not. I typed that in incorrectly. So over here, that should be 3. There we go. Now we have a C. So this tells us that that answer is correct. All right, here we go. Next one. Which graph best represents 2 times 5 to the power of x? So I should start at a y-intercept of 2, and for every one I move, multiply by 5. So it should start at 0, 2, 1, 10, 2, 50, 3, 250, and so on. So I look 0, 2. I'm verifying that y-intercept over here. I see here these guys don't even have the correct y-intercept. I'm looking for 1, 10. Answer choice F. I could have also have graphed it and compared. 41. The area of a rectangular trampoline is 112 feet squared. The length of the trampoline is 6 foot greater than the width of the trampoline. Which situation can be represented? This situation can be represented by this equation. What is the width of the trampoline in feet? So of course I could go ahead and try and factor this, but what I'm going to do, because I'm only looking for those x-intercepts, is I'm going to run myself a polyroot. I could have also have simply, ran a graph and did a graph trace. So I have negative 14, positive 8. The width can only be positive, so my correct answer here is 8. 42. The table shows a linear relationship between the balance of a student's savings account and the number of weeks he's been saving. And they're asking what is the rate of change. So I'll pick the two simplest points, 39 minus 32. I'll divide by 1 minus 0. My rate of change should be 7. I'll go ahead and I'll run a regression just to verify that answer. I'll go ahead and input all of my values. And now I'll go ahead and run my linear regression. I will tell it these are my x's from number 4 to 2. My y's from number 42. And look at that. We got exactly the same slope, positive 7. That is correct. Next one, 43. They want to know which equation is represented by this graph. So first of all, I need to figure out the slope. So I'll go ahead and I'll pick two random points. Down 3 over 1. So my slope should be negative 3. I see these guys have the incorrect slope. Now I'll go ahead and I'll take a look at the points. Here, I should be located at positive 4, negative 7. And over here, it should be negative 2, negative 1. So now I'll look to see if those points exist on my line. Negative 2, negative 1. That does not. Positive 4, negative 7. That does. My correct answer is A. I could have also have ran a regression and then did a lin solve to compare these. Okay? So if I got a C, that would have been my correct answer. So let me go ahead and just do that real quick. So I'll go ahead and run my regression for number 43. So I'll go ahead and put in those values. I'll go ahead and run this linear regression. And I see here that I have a slope of negative 3 and a y-intercept of positive 5. So that should be y equals negative 3x plus 5. And I need to verify that this guy and this guy are the same. So I'll head over to a calculator page. I'm going to start a new lin solve. I'll type in the first equation. I'll type in the second equation. And look at that, I got a C. So that tells me that this is definitely the correct answer. 44. Which expression is a factor of this? So they're asking me to go ahead and factor it. I'll do that. 9 times 1. I need two numbers that add up to negative 4. That tells me that I have two negatives. Okay. So negative 1, negative 9, negative 3, negative 3. And that's it. There are no factorization of this. But I just want to make sure. So let me go ahead and go over here. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and run my polyroot. Let's find out what those x-intercepts look like. So I'll say 9, negative 4, positive 1. Oh, whoops. Positive 1. And it said that there is no solution. There's nothing there. There are no real factors. Now, if I took this same exact equation and I graphed it, it should not touch the x-axis at all. Whoops. Ooh. Hold on. And look at that, it doesn't touch the x-axis. So we were correct in saying there are no real factors. Which one of these below is a solution to this equation? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this equation over because I want to go ahead and establish what exactly it looks like as a y equals mx plus b, because that's the only way I really know how to graph things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move that 2x over. I asked myself, hey, did you multiply or divide by a negative number? I did not, so I'm going to leave it exactly the same. Now I'll go ahead and get rid of that coefficient by dividing everything I see by -5. And I did multiply or divide by a negative number. And now I have my equation. I could go ahead and verify that with a lens solve, but not the inequality portion. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a look at this, and I'm going to establish that I need to shade down. It's y smaller than. Now I can go ahead and start determining where my solutions are. 0, 5, not a solution. 5, 0, that is a solution, barely. -2, +5, not a solution. And then finally, -5, +2. Also not a solution. So my only correct answer is answer choice B. However, I could have also done this by doing a test. The way I would have done that is I'd head over here, go to my calculator page. I'm going to type in my original equation. I'm going to select the appropriate inequality symbol. And now I'm going to highlight it so you guys can hold this button and drag it. And I'm going to push Control C. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to put in each one of these variations. So over here would be 0, 5, false. The first one is not an answer. 5 and 0. The second one is a solution. Third one. Not a solution. And I'll try the fourth one. Also not a solution. Answer choice B is most certainly the correct answer. 46. Scientists are studying a bacteria sample. The function gives the number of bacteria in the sample at the end of X days. Which statement is the best interpretation of one of the values in this function? The initial number of bacteria is 12. Absolutely not. In this equation, we know that this is my y-intercept / my initial value, and then here is my growth or decay. I see that it's starting at 245. That is incorrect. The initial number of bacteria decreases. Well, I look at this and it looks like it's going up by 12% every day. Incorrect. The number of bacteria increases at a rate of 12% each day. That is correct. The number of bacteria at the end of one day is 245. Well, if I replace this with a 1, that's going to make it bigger than 245. Incorrect. Answer choice H. Number 47. The daily cost of hiring a plumber, Y, to work X hours on a repair project can be modeled using a linear function. The plumber charges a fixed cost of $80 plus $45 per hour. The plumber works a maximum of 8 hours per day. For 1 day of work, what is the range of this situation? So I can work either 0 hours, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, all the way up to 8 hours. So what I can do is I can actually graph this and take a look at it, or I can go ahead and take a look at my table of values. So here they're asking me about the range. I can automatically eliminate A and C. Those are domain. So now I can go ahead and I can say, all right, if I work the maximum of 8 hours, and let's go ahead and go over here to my calculator, and I'll go ahead and name this 45x plus 80, and I'm going to store that as f47 of x. So now I have it stored. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the maximum number of hours, $440. That's the most I can make. But what about the least? Let's say I only worked 0 hours. 80. Okay, so I go back and I look at the numbers. And it looks like answer choice B is the only one that matches. I could have also looked at this in my table. So I'll go ahead and graph this. And I'll call this F47. I'm going to look at my table. So if I work no hours, I'll make $80. So if it's just like a quick breeze in 5-minute job, it's $80. I can go all the way up to 8 hours for $440. All right, number 48. The graph of g of x was transformed to create the graph of h of x. Which of these describes the transformation from the graph of g to the graph of h? Okay, so I see here that these guys are the same. So let me go ahead and graph these. I'll say g of 48 of x equals x squared. H 48 of x equals negative x over 4 squared. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and graph them and just look and see what happens, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and first type in my initial graph. So I'll call that g of 48. And that's going to be equal to x squared. So that's what that graph would look like. And then let's go ahead and type in my h 48. Okay, so I had a lot going on there. So it looks like my graph got flipped over the x-axis, this guy here. So it got mirrored over the x-axis. So let me look. Reflection over the x, reflection over the y, reflection over x, reflection over y. So we've eliminated. Now, it looks like it got fatter, right? So this can be vertically compressed because I squished it, or horizontally stretched. So this is a horizontal stretch. Number 49. Here they're asking me to simplify this. So I'll go ahead and get started. First I see here 10 and 2. So I'll rewrite that as a 5. My W's, I'll go ahead and do 7 minus 4. Let me go ahead and write in that Q. Reduce my W's. Now I'll go ahead and look at the second part. I need to distribute this guy. So this would be times 4 times Q to the power of 12. all divided by w to the negative 5. Now I'll go ahead and keep simplifying. 20q to the power of 17, w to the power of 9. So I'm going to look, and it looks like answer choice B is the only logical answer. I just want to verify this. So I'll go ahead and go to a calculator page and I'll run a test. I'm going to store the value of 2 for my Q and 3 for my W. Now I'll go ahead and type in my first one. So I'll go ahead and get started by making that fraction. And I'll put in that second half. Now I'll say, hey, is this going to be the same as 20q to the power of 17? Don't forget my multiply. Multiplied by w to the power of 9. And it is. They're exactly the same. So I got that one correct. Number 50. Which coordinates best represent the vertex of the graph? So I'm going to look directly in the center. I see it right there. It's located at 1, -2. I could have also went the super complicated route, ran a regression, graphed it, did a graph trace. So I could have also done it that way. Number 51. What is the slope of the line that passes through these points? So of course in my calculator I can totally do a regression, but I'll go ahead and I'll just run this one by hand. I'll get set up first. I'll do 17 minus -11, -9 minus 5. I'm going to start simplifying. And I get a final slope of -2. I'll just go ahead and verify this in my calculator by starting a new spreadsheet. And I'll go ahead and run my linear regression. I'm going to go ahead and choose those x's. There we go. I'm going to rename that. And look at that. Same exact slope, -2. We got this one correct. Number 52. What is the x solution of the system of equations? So here we have quite a bit going on. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange this top one. X minus 2y equals -4. Now I'm going to look for commonalities. I think the easiest way to do this would be to multiply this top one by -7. So I'll do that. -7x plus 14y equals +28. Now I can go ahead and I can combine them. And I end up with this. Now I can go ahead and divide both sides by 19 in order to get that y by itself. I find out that y has a value of -2. I can go ahead and plug that back into my original equation. And I find out that x has a value of -8. My correct answer should be H. However, I just want to verify this using my calculator. I'll start a new calculator page, head over here, solve system of linear equations, and I'm going to type in those two equations exactly as they appear. And look at that, exactly the same answer. My x value should be -8. Number 53. Which expression is equivalent to square root of 96? So for this one, we should be able to run a test, but because this is such an exact number, the calculator is not going to pick up on that, so we have to type them in and compare the values manually. But before we do that, I just want to get started by first taking a look at it, and I say, okay, there's a 3, and I can do this. 3 times 32. I can break it down even further, like this. And I broke it down to all of its factors. So I will show you the other method in just a second. Whoever has a date gets to go out. 2, 2, 3 times 2 is 6. So this should be 4 square root of 6. Now the other way to do this would be to write it like this. Whoops, hold on. Sorry, guys. Okay. And now that I see that I have something that I can actually take the square root of, I'll take the square root like this. I can break it apart. And look at that, exactly the same. So my correct answer should be D. Now, as I said before, if I type this in just straight away, it might give me an error depending on how the calculator is feeling, but I'll type it in anyways just to see. And here it says false. However, if I go ahead and just do the square root of 96, as well as 4 times the square root of 6, they're exactly the same value. But as I said, because the calculator is so specific, it's going to tell me something different, okay? So just be cognizant of that when you're doing these kind of problems. So answer choice D is most certainly the correct answer. All right, number 54, the last one on the specific exam. Which line appears to have an x-intercept of -5 and a y-intercept of +3? Okay, so let's look at this. X-intercept of -5, nope. 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 Yes. Y-intercept of +3. Yep. Answer choice G.